my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you are coming from my first video. My name is nzumgang, and in this video I'm going to give you 10 tips and tricks on how to successfully bleach your own hair at home. Tip number 1 is to do your research. Do as much research as possible. Don't just like watch one YouTube video or read one article and then get into bleaching some hair. Like, definitely watch an amalgam of videos, read an amalgam of articles, find books if you can about bleaching. Just do your research, because I don't know, I feel like this tip sounds kind of obvious, but definitely like do your research. Bleaching hair isn't something you want to just kind of dive into it. Like, you have to learn about toning and like what colors can go properly together, like how to prevent getting green hair when you're trying to get blue hair and stuff like that. Like, literally bleaching hair is like a whole science, so it's very important that you really do your research. You should even go as far as to looking into color theory and using the hair level chart. I'm not exactly sure what the exact name is, but I'll insert a picture of it somewhere along the screen so you know exactly like what shade to lift your hair to, so that you can get your like true desired color when you either tone it or when you apply the box dye to it. Tip number 2 is to do a strand test. Like, please do a strand test. Like, I know a lot of just bleaches and box dyes and other like hair coloring application systems, they always say to do a strand test, and I feel like a lot of people like ignore this part. But when it comes to bleaching, like, please do a strand test. When I first started off bleaching, I went in on like 2 whole bundles, y'all, and I ruined the bundles.
Ooh, Jesus.
It hurt my heart so much, bruh. Like, literally $100, or I think it was like $150 down the drain. Like, definitely do a strand test, because you just never know what could go wrong, because there are so many different like elements that go into bleaching. The type of bleach you use, the type of hair you use, the amount of time you let the bleach go on there for, that'll give you like certain results. So definitely do like a strand test on some hair before you actually go in on your actual like bundles or your wig, or like, you know, your actual hair. Tip number 3 is that if you can, try and bleach bundles first before you bleach a wig. Bundles are just easier to bleach because, you know, you're dealing with smaller sections of hair as opposed to like a full head of hair on a wig. So if you can, definitely bleach bundles first. And if you're trying to turn like bundles into a wig, go ahead and bleach the bundles and then turn the bundles into a wig. Definitely, if you, when possible, bleach bundles as opposed to a wig. Bundles are like a million times easier to bleach. Tip number 4 is that the second you mix the powder and the lightener together, you need to start moving. Like, once they're mixed together, a literal actual chemical reaction is literally taking place, so that mixture of bleach starts to kind of degrade over time. Like, for example, back when I first started getting into bleaching, I used to mix like just a big pot of bleach together, and then I realized that by the time I got to about like my 3rd bundle, it wasn't lifting to like the same amount as my first and my second were in like the same amount of time. And that's because literally like the bleach mixture will degrade over time. So like a fresh pot of bleach will lift the hair lighter than like a pot of bleach that's been sitting for about like 20-30 minutes. So like, literally, once you mix the powder and the developer together, like, start working, and make sure you work fast enough so that all your sections also process about at the same time, and so that they all process evenly as well. Tip number 5 is that if you're not so sure about your pacing and you don't think you'll pace yourself well enough to get all your sections to lift at about the same time and lift to about the same color, then you can definitely like kind of cut the process up so that you're making 2 separate bowls of bleach. And in the first bowl of bleach, you use a lower concentration of developer, and in the second bowl of bleach, you use a higher concentration of developer. For example, you can split your hair up into like a top and a bottom section and prepare your first bowl of bleach with a 20 volume developer and use that on the bottom section. Then you would prepare a second bowl of bleach with 30 volume developer and use that upon the top section. And if you're not sure of your pacing, once again, this will help just to ensure that your hair all processes to about like one even tone and whatnot. Tip number 6 is to never use 50 volume developer, and to not really start off with 40 volume developer. As we all know, the higher the developer volume, the faster the bleaching process will be, but faster doesn't always mean better. Like, faster can lead you to over-processed hair quicker. When it comes to bleaching, slow and steady truly does win the race, as cliche as that sounds. 50 volume developer will just get you into the realm of over-processing your hair like just too quickly, especially if you use aluminum foil while using 50 volume developer. You're literally almost asking for like over-processed hair. Like, I would only suggest like actual like genuine cosmetologists and people who like truly know what they're doing to use 50 volume developer. If you're just bleaching at home, I just feel like it's super unnecessary. I've seen so many YouTube tutorials where when they're bleaching hair to get blonde hair, they automatically use 40, and when you're starting off, that's just not the best bet. Because me, when those bundles that I damaged, I started off with 40 volume developer, and look at me, I basically wasted my like 100, 150, I forgot how much it really cost, but I knew it was over 100, but I basically wasted like over $100.
I'm a clown.
Tip number 7 is to never let your bleach stay on your hair for more than 45 minutes. Like literally, if you're working with a wig, once the bleach touches the first section of hair, after 45 minutes has elapsed, just go ahead and rinse out the entire head of hair. Like I've heard and I've seen videos where people will leave bleach on overnight, people will leave bleach on for an hour plus. Don't do that. Use superly duperly, I don't know why I said that, but you definitely run the risk of over processing and damaging your hair. Like you're gonna end up with straw as hair if you leave the bleach on for like more than 45 minutes. If after the 45-minute mark your hair hasn't lifted to the level that you want it to lift to, just start the bleaching process all over again. And once again, leave that on for another 45 minutes and rinse it out. But I would definitely not recommend you bleaching your hair more than like twice. I mean, you can sometimes get away with 3 times, but 3 times is almost pushing it. 3 times you'll enter the realm of your hair like shedding and whatnot. Tip number 8 is to definitely use caution when you're introducing foil into the bleaching process. Like once again, a lot of YouTube videos out there, you see many people using foil, so you feel like you're inclined to use foil. You don't have to. Once again, foil will speed up that reaction and you're gonna enter the realm of potentially like over processing your hair. Just make sure that when you are using foil, you're definitely checking it like every 2-3 minutes. Like you really have to be on it if you're gonna use foil. In my first video where I do take what used to be a black wig and I did bleach it and dye it into this light brown color, go check that out if you guys haven't, you know, hashtag a little shameless promo. You see that I use foil at some point towards the end of the video to lighten up the ends of the hair a little bit and lighten up certain strands that I noticed weren't lifted as high as the rest of the head of hair. So definitely just use foil with caution, and if you are using foil, check those sections every 2 to 3 minutes so that you truly do not run the risk of over processing and damaging your hair. Tip number 9 is to not stress and not fret. Like if you follow someone's tutorial to a T and your hair doesn't come out exactly as theirs, like there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that there's so many different like factors that go into bleaching hair, like the type of bleach you use, even like the kind of hair you're using, the kind of developer you're using, the amount of time. There's just an amalgam. There's just too many factors that go into bleaching hair that can cause your hair to come out slightly different from like someone else's if you're following their tutorial even to a T. I too have once followed a tutorial to a T. I remember once I was bleaching and dyeing bundles to get like an auburn hair color, and I ended up like with a dark brownish hair color with like red highlights. Like if I were indoors, you could look and you'd think, okay, that girl has just like dark brown hair. But then when I got outside, you'd see, oh, okay, I see she got like dark brown hair with some red going on in it. But like, no, I wanted to be a visible like redhead, but no. And that will help me segue into my 10th and final tip, which is to not be so quick to throw away bundles or throw away a wig in which you did not get your intended hair color in. There is always a way to fix the hair color, whether you need to go back in with some more bleach, whether you need to go pick up a darker shade of like a box dye to get it to your intended hair color shade. There's just always a way to fix hair color. Like I've seen a rise in videos of how to like completely remove like a previous hair color that you've put on like a wig or on bundles, so you can even do that. The hair color mistake, in which I talked about how I ended up getting a hair color that was like dark brown with red highlights, I ended up fixing that just by bleaching the bundles again. Like there's always a way that you can fix a hair color. So that's it for this video. Definitely don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you all so much for tuning in. See you next time. Bye.